Welcome, and thanks for staying with us. This is the 9 o'clock hour of Rapid Dawn right here on Rapid Television. Apologies for keeping you waiting, because I know that Wednesdays at 9 o'clock happens to be one of your hottest days here. Don't argue about that. But anyways, I love the fact that we're here, and the house is pretty full. My name is Martha Alu, and for the 9 o'clock conversation, every Wednesdays we have the ladies seated in the studio, and we have conversations centered around people, their relationships, their mistakes, marriages, and whatnot. And today, we're talking about something that is super important for the growth and the development of every gender, which is basically stereotypes in general. Gender stereotypes, cultural stereotypes, religious stereotypes. We will be broadening on that, but the basics for our conversation this morning will be gender stereotypes. And to have that conversation with me this morning, I have right at my left Ove Marie Kotsu. Good morning.
Good morning, girl.
I have the beautiful Ifeanyi Chukwu Rose. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And then, of course, another beautiful Sharifa Mohammed. Thank you so much. Like, we have very beautiful girls in the studio this morning, and I'm really excited. And I was telling them I will always forgive a fine girl. You know, it's one of the things. Yes. So for today's conversation, like I said earlier, we will be having conversations centered around stereotypes. And let me just hear what your perspectives about stereotypes briefly is before we head on. Let's start with yours.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction. For me, when I think about gender stereotypes, I think about it as a social construct that kind of dictates or have expectations of how men and women should behave, how they should think, and even down to how they should express themselves. And it's mostly ruled by, you know, religion, the way we were brought up, the cultural and social norms, and just the environment you find yourselves. It's not necessarily an innate emotion or ability that we have as human beings. So that's just what comes first to mind when I think about gender stereotypes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sharifa, thank you so much.
Okay.
Let's hear you, Sharifa.
So I would say it's tags, maybe what is expected from us. Like, we don't even have choice. It's just been placed on us. Maybe like childhood, you're growing up to it, and it's already expected. Your brain is already wired that this is what you have to do because you are a male or a female. So you can't debate it. And the moment you start going against it, it seems like you are acting differently, and society would start to question you. So I think that is what I can say on the surface of gender stereotype.
All right, let's hear you, Mary. What are your thoughts on gender stereotypes?
Now, most times when the word comes up, the first thing the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that we literally have no choice in like more than half of the things we do in life, because the moment you're giving birth to, that is when you're decided to be this or that. And because every other person has passed through this, it has been inserted into them vehemently that people around you, whether it's a small circle or a big one, whether it's just the family unit or the society, it impacts you going forward. And if you have to break out of that, you have to have a big mind of your own. A very big mind. Because like she said, if you if you try to move out of what they have decided that is what you are, they start to question you.
And you know, I love the perspective of everybody, but I'll take from what you said, where you say it's not an innate trait, it is something that is conditioned by the environment. And sometimes I just wonder, when I hear some of those stereotypes, like, how did you come up with these kind of stereotypes? And you said for you to break away from these stereotypes, you have to be like a very assertive person, a very dogged person. And you know, because sometimes you have to find yourself arguing stuff out. No, that's not how it's meant to be. No. And you know, yesterday we had a conversation here on TV. We were talking about the use of tobacco, and in fact we had an argument on that. One of the arguments I had was, one of the people that were being interviewed spoke about how, you know, as women, we also have to know that the family is looking up to us. So the responsibility lies more on the shoulders of the woman. And I said no, because you see, both a man and a woman, it's their core responsibility.
Yes.
Everyone is looking up to you. But when you hold one gender up to a high moral standard and give another person from another gender allowance to do what they need to do, this will cause some level of friction in society. It's the same thing. The Ojoduoba festival recently, you saw it this morning.
Yes.
A woman was, you know, smoking electric cigarettes, and the whole internet went crazy. Why will a woman be holding that? But men do it all the time.
Yes.
Men do it all the time. And she was explaining herself. I'm like, why are you explain? Why do you have to explain yourself? And I think that this is because of the stereotypes again of
And
how
issue an apology upon that.
exactly. Yes, yes, she did that.
She did.
Yeah, she had to.
Wow.
She did
She had
that.
to come and explain herself and say exactly why she was doing it, and even say it wasn't tobacco, it was just vapor that she was puffing out, which was not necessary. It wasn't necessary. She didn't have to do that.
Yes. Because I mean, again, stereotype.
Exactly.
Why do I have to hold on to it? Now, don't get me wrong. Cigarettes have their dangerous consequences to human lives, right? But I should not hold you high to a moral standard much more than myself just because I'm from a particular gender. Now, let's talk about the effect of these stereotypes on human beings in general. Now, both male or female. What do you think are the consequences of this stereotype in today's society? Let's start with you, Sharifa.
Okay, so for me, I would say, like a depression, and I'll explain that. When you have a home that they have a male child and a female child, already the male child is meant to be either studying medicine, engineering, you know, because he's meant to be the breadwinner of the family. So imagine going to school to study a course because your parents expect you to take over their company, and then you are growing up already sad. You can't even have a say because you are a male child, and then you are already working in something or an organization that doesn't fit your skill, your talents, and then they get married and transfer that depression or that sadness to their kids, and then it goes on into generations. So that's one of the consequences. And then now I think this, I wouldn't say Gen Z, but the way we are now, ladies don't want to get married. So many ladies want to stay and don't get married. But then you have to start explaining why you are 30 and you are living alone. Some homes don't, some landlords don't even want you to stay in their house if you are not married. That's the consequence. Now you have to still live with maybe your auntie that does not like you, or your parents that are after your mental health, because as a lady, you cannot live alone if you are not married. And there's so many others. Even, I don't know if I should talk about the transgender or I should leave that out.
By all means.
Yeah.
By all
So,
means,
you know, you just feel like, okay, a guy has so many, well, I say female touch or feminine side, and he cannot come out. I don't know if you guys are very in touch of what has been happening when you come out in Nigeria. They go as far as killing them. They even stone them alive during the daytime, and nobody comes out to say anything because they feel like as a man, you are not allowed to embrace that side. Some even go as far as committing suicide because of depression. So these are so many consequences. You know, believe a woman cannot be a president. A woman cannot head a company because she's a female. She has to be a homemaker, and then you start downplaying yourself in the home. Even to a man that you know you have more skills and ability and more than, but because you are a woman, you have to shrink. So there are just so many consequences if you look around it here in society.
Love it. Let's hear you. What are some of the consequences that you've been able to, you know, point out?
I think when people are not allowed to express themselves the way they feel, they become something else and much more terrible. Yeah, because I know that, for example, the very common ones that we see around is the fact that they tell you, be a man. Come on,
don't cry.
Pick yourself up.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna save you. And even how, you know, parents handle their girls different from their boys.
Yes.
So you see that the girl is always like, oh, what do you want? Okay, here, have it. Here, have it. And then the boy, in as much as he gets it, he doesn't, they just don't want to give him the illusion that he's gonna get everything he wants from somebody. Yeah.
He has to work for it.
Yeah. And that is why eventually we women, we become how do they say it? Entitled. That's the word.
Entitled.
We become entitled, and the men are struggling inside. Like they can't even ask for help. I know men who will not ask for help, and there are some who will not even accept help.
Or even open up to their wives or their mothers.
You won't even hear about it. So, and then I don't think it's very hard to see a man crying.
Exactly.
Especially in Nigeria.
And when he
Except they have to
cries,
go to the closet.
and when he cries, he's just being a lady.
Yeah,
He's
so they
weak.
judge him that way. Yeah, they say he's weak and
weak.
everything. But I don't think so.
Yeah.
I have also seen men who have been able to find a balance with this thing. And they do way better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know? They do way better. They love better.
Yes.
They care better. They understand better. But if you have to bottle up your emotions, if you take in that thing where they say, oh, you're a man, act like a man, you eventually pass it on to other people, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
You just become aggressive. You think things twice and do it the way you think society wants you to do it, which spoils your relationships and all of those things. These are some of the consequences. It happens to siblings, it happens to parents, it happens to husbands. You know, I don't even want to start with my stories.
All right, let's hear you.
All right, thank you very much for that. From my perspective, I would like to look at domestic violence and imposter syndrome. And when we think about domestic violence as a society, we automatically think of men beating women. But it's not always the case. There have been cases of domestic violence where it's the woman that is the perpetrator. And then there's also angles of domestic violence that's not just physical. It could be mental, it could be emotional. But speaking more about men, sometimes we have to empathize with them, you know, because they grew up in a society where they saw it as normal to hit your wife or to discipline the women in the family. You will have situations where a younger brother or a younger person will be given the authority by the male figures in his life to discipline his elder sister, or even sometimes the mother, for going against cultural norms or family values or ethics. And then you have women who grew up in predominantly female societies, or a matriarchy, if I may use that word. And then they are raised to be independent, they are raised to, you know, be vocal, be bold, be assertive. And then imagine taking person A, who grew up with a society or in an environment where, you know, they watch their dad hit their mom or their sister being kept quiet and stay in the kitchen. And then you take person B, who grew up
in charge,
doing everything, driving the car, putting on the generator, going to the market, fixing things, you know, taking on both roles. And then they will fall in love and they get married, and you see that they are not able to cohabit properly, because it's like, I grew up this way, this is what I know as society, this is what I know as family. And then the other person is like, no, a woman should be this, a woman should be that. Meanwhile, their inner child could be begging for empathy. They want to come out of that role, like she said, of being, you know, having to face financial burdens alone. They want to cry, they want to not be a man all the time, they want to be weak and be strong some days, you know. So these are the constructs that we have to think about. And for the women, you find them dealing with imposter syndrome. Because they don't know themselves, they don't know where they belong or how to stand. And then the men, you find them dealing with abuse, and they don't necessarily want to impact those kinds of on the women, but at the same time you find them doing it because that's all they know. So they have to relearn, they have to unlearn, and then they have to become entirely new people. So it's just a societal thing. And I just feel like these are the effects, or I'm confident that these are the effects that we have in our society, especially in Africa and Nigeria as a whole.
Well, can't I agree with everything? Like, I do agree with it, but personally I think that this is based on my personal stories now. I think that about 70% of the issues, gender issues we have in society, come from stereotypes. And I'll tell you why. I was very curious about the ripple effect of things, which made me to read a bit about it, ripple effect and what have you. And then I realized that most times we don't think about the after effect of what we do. We just look for the immediate gratification of what that does for us. So what can this get me immediately? We think about that without understanding what that will eventually cause. It's just like, let me use for instance fuel subsidy. Taking that out, is it good? Yes, because, you know, there have been fraud, irregularities in the system, which looks like the good thing to do. What is the ripple effect of that? Hardship. So being able to look for a way to balance that is what gives the balance to society. Okay, now I'm taking this out, but let me subsidize this. Now I'm taking this out, but let me provide this. But you see, for stereotypes, we say a man should be this and a woman should be like this. Because you have given them a social construct on how they should operate, it makes it difficult for them to align with each other. And like you rightly gave an example, I grew up in a matriarch environment where it's mostly women, you know, hardly men. So there's hardly anything I would need anybody to do, like so much for me, especially when it's something around the house, because I didn't find most men around the house. So in where I come from, both the men and the women do the same thing. They cook. Each of them cook. A man will cook, a woman will also cook. If you need to start the generator, you will learn it, because you will become stranded in a society where the men are not there. Now, you know, we have said countless times that men, their responsibility is just to provide. Once they can provide, they now are the ultimate men. But do you know the ripple effect of that? Emotional unavailability.
Yes.
You told the man that his responsibility is to provide in the home. So he abandons every responsibility within the home, which is looking after the emotional well-being of his family, bonding with his children as much as he does with his wife, and then he goes out to provide for the home. When he comes back, he cannot tolerate any other thing that doesn't speak to his original stereotype that the society has given to him, which is problem solving. So if you want him to fix the bulb, he will do that. If you want him to turn on the generator, he naturally knows that this is how he functions. So when you say help me around the home to wash the plates, it becomes a problem, because you are taking me off of my natural habitat where the society have placed me naturally. So personally, I think that if we are able to break these stereotypes, people will function better in environments that are independent of their primary orientation. So a man that grew up in a patriarchal environment and a woman that grew up in a matriarchal environment can function in each environment, because now in this environment you are taught diverse perspective to things, and in this environment you are also taught diverse perspective to things. So you can function either ways wherever you find yourself. So now, which will lead us to our very next question. How do we break these stereotypes? Because it's such a big issue. Every time I have a conversation with people, I just realize that you are a product of stereotype. You have become a product of an environment. And when a person tries to break out, they become intolerable to the society, because you are expected to be like this. Why are you like this? So how do we break this stereotype? Who goes first?
Well, I would say the home.
Okay.
You know, everything starts from the home, and we as individuals, it starts from you, and I. You know, what you teach your siblings, even your, do you know there are girls right now that they are training their mothers?
Yes, all over.
Like they call their mothers pick me mothers.
Yeah.
So it starts from we as individuals. You know, you have to, and allowing the men, be it our brothers, fathers, to know that it's okay to show your emotions. It's okay to not only be a provider. You know, for fathers to now attend their children's programs, to be involved in their life and not just pay school fees, lesson fee, know their grades, what they want to be, you know, what they are good at. And I think I'm seeing more fathers do that recent. No. Yes, they it's not just them providing, they are trying to connect with their kids, and the mothers too should also encourage their boys from little, oh yeah, wash the plate, go and do this. So it starts from the home. That is what I would say. It starts from the home, and we as individuals. So yes.
Okay. How can we solve this problem?
Okay, I should go first. I should go next, rather.
Okay.
All right. So just to expand on what she said, I would say it's all about making counseling and education more accessible. As we know in Nigeria, whenever we go to churches or our religious denominations, we're always praying for favor, for money, for financial growth. But we hardly ever hear prayer for education, if you think about it. No one is really saying, God, please let's make education more accessible in Nigeria. Let it be free up to a particular point. And I think education is the grassroots, because once we start to educate children and counsel parents as well, because if we know in the school system, we see situations whereby there's parent-teachers conference, and when you see a child behaving in a certain way, you can call up the parents and educate them and make this education accessible. But when parents are thinking about school fees, they're thinking about uniform, the fees for uniform, feeding, all of that, they don't have the time to even comprehend what you're trying to tell them. They don't have the time to absorb or assimilate the information that you're giving them. So we need to make counseling and education more accessible at grassroots level. So this goes to even government schools, government institutions, even hospitals. And for men as well, because when we think about education and accessibility, we like to focus on the girl child.
Yeah.
Yes, the girl child suffers a lot when we look at the demographics and the numbers, the statistics, yes. But at the same time, the men can be overlooked or neglected. And if we fail to look into the male gender, we are going to miss out on a lot of things, because their function, or the way they could function, just like she mentioned, some of them could be transgender, some of them could have a different sexual orientation. They won't be able to cohabit comfortably and boldly come out and say, this is who I am and this is how I want to contribute in a healthy way, in a positive way to society. So we need to just kind of figure out a way as intellectuals, as you know, responsible members of society. We need to think of how we can come together and form a union or a peace-giving or a family-oriented way to just, you know, bring about more harmony and more peace and education and counseling within homes. And yes, starting from homes, family units, schools, and then the environment at large, even in workplaces as well, is very, very important. Okay. All right, over to you, madam.
Okay. As I passed it on to you, you're passing it on to me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the thing is, you spoke about family.
Yes.
And you spoke about the society. But I'm going to say that it is a personal thing.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Yes, because if you allow others teach you, it is based on their own experiences. One way or the other. Their own experiences will come in and they would want you to do things the way they do.
Personal bias.
Do you get? So you have to educate yourself. It is self-awareness. It is for you to look deep into it, not just to move like a ship that doesn't know where it's going to. Get yourself to, you know, educate yourself. And then use other people's experiences to weigh everything, every choice that you're making. Try to have a mind of your own. And then that is when you then go out to educate others.
Other people.
To educate your family, to educate your children, your siblings, and even your parent, like you said. Oh, but we pray that the parents are actually people that want to learn. Because you know how we African parents, not we, I'm not a parent, but our African parents.
We African parents.
You know how our African parents can be. They are just perfect most of the time. So we should pray that we also have parents who want to learn. So basically, the thing is, like I said, have a big mind of your own. Tell yourself, I'm not going to do this. And tell the person who is asking you to do it, I will not do it. And give the person reasons. I mean, of course, if you want to.
If you want to, yes.
Because when you love somebody, you would want to, you know, explain your actions to them. It's normal that you don't want them to misunderstand things. So if you want to, you go ahead and explain. Now, the reason I'm saying you should explain is because when you're teaching your children how to live in society, based on the research you've done and things you've seen, you would want to tell them, oh, this, when it, like you said, short-term effects. This, when you do it this way, right now, it seems okay, but in the future, this is what it causes you. So you explain these things and people understand. I don't know about both of you, but I know that when I was growing up, and probably Martha, they tell you, your parents tell you, do this, and then they don't tell you why you should do it, or why, or not, of course, that one too is there. How? You're supposed to just know.
Yes, that's the norm. You just need to know how to do it.
Common sense.
Yes. And there are things still date, if they ask you how do you know, you don't even know. You just found your way.
You figured it out on your own.
Yes. That can happen, but then there are people who do not have the mind to actually take that, because at the end of the day they become traumatized. Like, why would you tell me to do things? And you know, I've never done it before, but you asked me to do it anyways. Like, didn't you think that you should show me how to do it? It's in a way, right? If we're going to talk about child education, I think that is not so bad, because sometimes you have to let the child figure out what the child is doing. But guidance is very necessary. Now, and I'm talking about the fact that parents will tell you, I don't ever want you to do this again. Don't you dare do this. And then they're not telling you why you should not do it. And if you ask why, they will beat hell.
All right, let's have you hold that thought for a bit. We need to go out on a very quick break, and when we get back from that break, we'll keep up with the conversation. Of course, I want to hear their personal experiences as to how they broke out of the norm. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Best believe I had some personal stories of air, which we will be sharing right now, whether or not we're still in the stereotypes or we've broken out of the stereotype. And if you have, please tell us how. Over to the ladies. Who starts?
All right, I can go first.
Okay.
The way I broke out was just to become bold and then rebel. I just had to rebel against what I was used to. And trust me, it was not met with friendly arms. I was not embraced or given a pat on the back for rebelling, but at the same time, it was very fruitful because it taught me a lot, especially how to take initiative and survive on my own as a girl child. It made me to be more resilient. It made me to just, understand the social norms, understand what it feels like to be sheltered, to grow up in a sheltered environment and to stand on your own and survive, especially as a woman in workplace cultures. So for me, I just had to become a rebel, I had to be bold, and I had to be balanced. It's important to be a little bit of a good girl and a bad girl. So yeah, that was it for me.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know if I would say I have broken out, but yeah, but I think my stand is I see marriage as very much optional. Very much optional.
Are you sure you will marry like this?
I want to get married. Well, to be honest, aside the fact that religion asks us to and society, I have not found a reason to get married. As much as
is listening to
very blunt, but I think it's something I've thought about over time, and it's not like I've not had tutors. I've had serious tutors, but it gets to the point whereby I will say I don't want to do this. So I'm standing on that, even though my mom does not want to hear that.
No.
But I think I want to take my time and get married when I know that this is it. Not because society expects I should get married before my 30s or religion expect that. So I'm standing on that. Yeah.
We mean business.
And she's actually putting on a ring on her. I know you're not Christian. I know you're not Christian, but that is something for us.
This is just a fashion.
And I'm always worried at how Martha would always wear a ring. Martha is sending away suitors.
No, I'm not. I just love it. You see, that's the stereotype I'm talking about. You can't just exactly.
Have start thinking about what someone would think when they why not myself first?
Oh well, first off, the only time I'd lived by myself is in school.
Yeah.
Yes, and in my family, it's like, what? Like you went to live by yourself? Although
in school,
not in school, like outside school now. Except if you like get a grand job somewhere, and you know that you've got to have this job. Okay, go ahead. My dad doesn't really have a problem with it, but my extended family, like she said, you end up living with an auntie that doesn't like you. So that's, I don't know. Personally, if you talk about rebellion, it is me in the last 2 years, I think, standing up to my siblings.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, and deciding that, no, you can't do that. Like, I obviously can see that what you're doing to me is wrong. So you cannot do that. You cannot talk to me that way. I will do what I want to do, and you cannot do anything about it.
Wow.
If I may ask, what's your position?
Okay.
I'm the last.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so the both of you are
What do you mean? Life burns all over this set.
No, I'm not blind.
You are not okay.
Okay. So that's it. I just stood up to them. Now my parents are very cool. Very, very cool. My parents are cool. They don't have they would try not to even get into your business. But you see my siblings?
They will. That life is funny. Well,
I know that they do it for good sometimes, but I just had to tell them. There's certain things I'm not okay with. And someone like me, from a